And Mark joins us now, a friend of the show, of
Mark,
course,
good
for a
to see
long
you.
time.
Morning,
Mark,
guys.
thanks for coming in. So, you know, all of that aside, just how challenging has the property landscape, from your view, become for young Australians?
Well, virtually impossible. So if you're a young Australian and you grow up in Chatswood, for argument's sake, and you want to live in Chatswood where you have grown up, it's highly unlikely that you will be able to afford to buy in Chatswood until you're around 35 years of age, making a whole lot of assumptions about wages and how much you're prepared to save. But that's a lot further away than, say, the time that I grew up and where I was able to buy.
Yeah, so look, I mean, for many, the step into the market is going to be the hardest. That first step is so tough. What needs to change out there for property, so people can get into property, young people?
Well, it's very, from my point of view, it's very simple, and I don't want to sound like I'm being condescending to the government, but it's about supply, and we need more supply. And it's not about government. Governments don't build houses. Governments don't do anything. I mean, they just impose taxes on developers. The question is, what do the developers want to do? I went to the AFR Summit last year, Property Summit last year, which was Jennifer Hewitt ran, and it was pretty clear to me that the developers are getting very frustrated about all the taxes, all the slowdowns, all the impositions on them. If you want developers to do the job, then do something about it. And I remember many years ago, the Australian Film Corporation, I think it was, decided we wanted to do films in Australia in the 80s. And they offered the film corporations, particularly one in South Australia, they offered them money. They said, if you put this amount of money in other words, you raise this amount of money, we'll match it, and/or the people who invest in the film get 125% tax deduction. So let's see some tax incentives. Governments need to make some tax incentives. Incentivise the developers. They'll pin their ears back and their tail up, and they'll go and get the work done, and they'll build it forever.
Yeah.
We need them to tell us what they need to get done.
Well, that's it, because both major parties are pledging huge commitments in terms of building new properties and new homes, but it relies on councils, state governments, federal governments, everyone to work together. And as anyone knows who's ever tried to lodge a DA with a council, it can take forever. So it's a complicated thing. But meantime, these politicians are needing to walk a fine line, right, in terms of making the market more accessible for first home buyers, but also not smashing the assets of the many thousands of Australians who already own a home or have a mortgage.
Yeah, so what we don't want to happen is we don't want to put people who already own property in a position where they see the value of their property go down. So, again, supply is the thing that fixes that. New supply, new areas fixes that. Or new supply in areas where you can have more density. I see Chris Minns has been doing a bit of this around railway stations in New South Wales, but this needs to happen across the country. We need to see a lot more aggressive thinking, a lot more out-of-the-box stuff, but not something that's going to affect the value of anyone who currently has a home, because we can't have that wealth effect, or that negative wealth effect, will stop people from spending, and next thing you know, we're going to have a recession.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about the election then that's coming up. You know, obviously young people are going to be more motivated. Maybe they're going to outnumber the boomers. We'll see if they go to the polls or not, or how they're going to vote. What do you think now? Do you think that property is going to be forefront of their mind?
Maybe, I think I put that number 2, David. I think number 1 is cost of living generally. So my wages relative to the amount of costs that I have to throw out the door, and therefore cost of living sort of reflects on my standard of living. How good is my standard of living relative to, say, the standard of living that you guys had when you were their age, or when I was their age? So it's a standard of living issue, and they are acutely aware of this stuff. You know, and standard of living, of course, gets affected by things like, and governments can explain this, but things like immigration.
Yeah.
The more people you let into the country, the lower the standard of living becomes as a result of a whole series of issues, but the lower the standard of living becomes because there's more money allocated to a bigger denominator. And I'm not going against immigration, like I'm a proactive immigration, but we need to start to explain these things to our young people, and we need to say, and by the way, this is what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
But let's do some real positive stuff. You know, rhetoric is killing me.
Yeah,
it's killing us all.
You and everybody else.
It's just, I'm over it.
Yep.
Get it clear. Cost of living, what are you going to do about reducing the cost of living, or at least changing the way I spend my money? Give me some incentives, reduce my tax, do something, pay me a rebate. Like, you know, I remember in the 80s, there were rebates for people who had mortgages under a certain amount. You were paying your mortgage all year. And this was brought in by Labor Party, by the way, and I got a $500 rebate of tax at the end of the year because I was a mortgage holder.
There you go.
That's a simple one.
Yeah.
But what they're worried about is their budgets and their deficits. Stop throwing money out the door and start to spend the money you've been throwing out the door on good good policy.
Well, I have a feeling that when this campaign gets properly and officially underway, it will become a cost of living election. So we're going to have a lot to chat about in the weeks ahead.
A lot of money thrown around.
And when we spoke yesterday for the podcast, you had some great experience and advice to share with our audience too. So we appreciate you coming in today and chatting again.
Fantastic initiative. Good on you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mark. We
Mark.
appreciate it. And